By autumn 1944, the Allied advance across Western Europe was running short of supplies. They needed a new plan if it was to move forward. It was now that the methodical and ultra-cautious British commander Bernard Montgomery came up with a bold, even reckless idea. Instead of large numbers of troops advancing across a wide front, why not send a smaller force to punch a single hole through the German defenses? It would be faster and much more economical. The idea was to drive a narrow corridor from east of Antwerp across southern Holland to the Dutch town of Arnhem, near the German border. The Allies would then push across the Rhine into Germany, outflanking the huge German defensive positions of the so-called Siegfried Line, and drive deep into the heart of Hitler's Reich. Montgomery's boss, General Dwight Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander in the West, had until now favored a broad, steady advance. But he unexpectedly agreed. However, it was never going to be easy. The route went over a mass of waterways. Airborne troops would have to be sent in to seize strategic bridges behind German lines at the towns of Wegel and Zonn, Grave and Nijmegen, and finally across the Rhine at Arnhem. Their task would be to hold the bridges while the main attack, led by a column of tanks, drove up from Belgium. Timing was critical. If the tank column took too long, the airborne troops holding the bridges would be overwhelmed. Operation Market Garden began early on the afternoon of September the 17th, 1944. 30,000 British and US airborne troops, equipped with gliders, landed in German-occupied territory. The US 101st Airborne, the Screaming Eagles, swiftly captured the bridge at Wegel. But their second objective, the bridge at Zonn, was blown up by the Germans just as the Americans approached. Further north, the US 82nd Airborne, the All-Americans, successfully seized the bridge at Grave. But stiff German resistance prevented them from capturing the second crucial bridge at Nijmegen. Meanwhile, at Arnhem, 2 brigades of the British 1st Airborne Division landed safely about 8 miles west of the town. But as the paratroops advanced towards Arnhem's vital bridge across the Rhine, they ran into 2 German panzer divisions. The British dropped reinforcements of men and machines. But as they drifted down to earth, they were cut to pieces by German fire. Finally, by 8 in the evening, after a day of fierce fighting, an Allied battalion reached the northern end of the bridge. But the Germans still held the other end. Operation Market Garden was in trouble. At the same time, the tank column, advancing up a single-track road, was also running into difficulties. As it drove towards the Dutch border on the first day, the lead vehicles were ambushed by German troops using the lethal handheld Panzerfaust anti-tank rocket. The advance was halted, while infantry was brought in to clear the way. The following day, the tank column reached Zon, but was delayed overnight while the bridge was replaced with a temporary structure. By the third day, it had crossed the bridges at Wegel and Grave, but was held up again by fierce resistance at Nijmegen. Finally, 4 days after starting out, the column was at last within striking distance of Arnhem. But it was too late. The British paratroops holding the northern end of the bridge had surrendered. Montgomery's daring plan had failed. Arnhem had proved a bridge too far. The war on the Western Front seemed to have ground to a standstill again. Then, 10 days later, the Allies launched a new effort to break the deadlock. The plan was to clear the seaway into Antwerp so that urgently needed supplies could be brought in. It was slow going. The Germans had flooded much of the area. It took Canadian troops 3 weeks to clear the riverbanks of German soldiers and machine gun nests. But still, the Germans clung on to the strategically important Walcheren Island. It had massive guns that commanded the river entrance. On November the 1st, 1944, British commandos were sent in to flush the Germans out. They were supported by 2 World War I monitors with huge 15-inch guns. The Germans held on for another week before they were finally overwhelmed. Allied minesweepers could now clear the seaway. Three weeks later, on November the 28th, 1944, the first supply ships reached Antwerp. Now, at last, the Allies could move on towards the German frontier. But then, just as the supplies had begun to flow, the weather changed. Autumn rain turned the battlefield into a swamp. By late 1944, the Allied advance had to stop again. The final defeat of Germany would have to wait until the spring. But even as the Allies waited, Hitler was preparing a massive response.